Hi, I am Lisa VanBockern. I am the president and founder of SkinScript Skincare, and I'm going to be talking to you today about melanogenesis. Today's topic is on melanogenesis, and we're going to have a discussion on how our skin receives its color and then what can go wrong. So just first, a little bit about me. My name is Lisa VanBockern. I am the founder and president of SkinScript. My passion is educating clients on why their skin behaves the way it does. So it's making a difference in skin, correcting skin. My treatments were sold in a series, 6 treatments. And in those 6 treatments, I had to make a clinical change in the skin. And so if something wasn't working, I had to readjust. But for the most part, it was really getting to the root cause of why are we having pigmentation issues. I am a licensed esthetician. My background was in medical spas. I specialized in the treatment of Fitzpatrick's 4 through 6, specifically with pigmentation, acne, and melasma. However, I'm an esthetician, but my background is in accounting and computer information systems, and I am a Sun Devil from Arizona State University. So what is this webinar going to talk about today? We're going to have a discussion on keratinocyte stem cells, keratinocytes, and melanocytes. And we're going to focus on those 3 specific areas of the epidermis. Specifically, I'm going to be talking about nutritional considerations so that those cells are healthy. And we're going to talk about displaying, I'll show you some pictures of common pigmentation disorders, and then treatment considerations for those issues. So let's start at the basement of the epidermis, which is the basal layer, the stratum germinativum. It's the dermal epidermal junction where the epidermis meets the dermis. It's the lowest level of the epidermis. What we're seeing here is we're going to focus on these stem cells. Keratinocytes are born at this level. What you're seeing on this slide is a melanocyte here residing at this level. And this melanocyte, can you see those little orange arms that are reaching up into the stratum spinosum? Those are dendrites. And so this specifically right here we're looking at is a melanocyte. They are far and few between in the basal layer, and 1 in 10 cells are melanocytes. So we have many more stem cells that are creating keratinocytes than we have melanocytes. And those melanocytes just stay right there in that basal layer. But what about keratinocyte stem cells? So what we're looking at here, so this is our dermal epidermal junction, and he has finger-like projections. He's not just level, but he has these little stem cells that reside here. These stem cells will divide and split off keratinocytes. They go through mitosis more frequently. So this is how our cells are going to arrive at the surface. They're born here at the basal layer. They're going to work their way up and finally get to the stratum corneum in an average of 28 days, anywhere from 15 to 45 days, but the average is 28 days. This is really where I want to put some focus today, is on the cell membrane. If we can produce a healthy cell, and what you're looking at here on the screen are bilayers. These are water-loving heads and oil-loving tail phospholipids here, and it's a bilayer system in this cell membrane. So it's for the melanocytes, it's for keratinocytes, it's for the cell for the stem cells. And this piece here is very important, that we have healthy water-loving heads, oil-loving tails. And they are made up of essential fatty acids. So what do you think it's going to take to have healthy cell membranes? Essential fatty acids. EFAs are critical for making healthy cell membranes. Deficiencies are linked to numerous illnesses and conditions. They're an important energy source for the body. They create cell membranes, strong cell membranes, and they play this significant role in cell-to-cell signaling. Because as you know, when we're penetrating ingredients, the ingredients just don't get down to the dermis. They actually are, a lot of that is accomplished through cell-to-cell signaling. And so if we have healthy cell membranes getting our essential fatty acids, everything works much better. And just as, we're supposed to have this proper ratio of omega-6s and 3s, also some 9s. But omega-6s are easy to get because those are found in a lot of our modern diets with meats and modern olive oils, that type of thing. Omega-6s are inflammatory, and that's a good thing. So when our bodies need recovery, those omega-6s come in and they help with inflammation to heal the body, but you have to have your omega-3s, and those are on the left, to bring down the inflammation. So 6s are rushing in to heal, omega-3s are bringing down that inflammation. And so they'll say that the proper ratio is a 4-to-1 ratio, but our modern American diet is more about 36-to-1 omega-3s. So we're trying to get more fish and leafy greens, nuts, and seeds. So now we've talked about this cell membrane and how important it is that it be healthy so that it can have this signaling of cell-to-cell communication. Specifically on the left, I like to talk about the lysosome over here. He is really important at cleaning up cellular waste. And I'll show you in the next couple of slides when we talk about what's going wrong. If we don't have healthy cell membranes, this lysosome cleans things up, but he moves cellular waste out through something called exocytosis. And here on the right, we're seeing vitamins, specifically what we're showing here is A, B, C, E's, K's, and those vitamins, nutrition, need to pass through this cell membrane and get in and provide the cell the nutrition it needs. It gets cleaned up and it gets moved out again by exocytosis, and there is that metabolic waste you're seeing there. So we'll come back to this because if this cell isn't healthy, this cellular waste can get caught in here and it will have the appearance of pigmentation. So in an ideal world, pigmentation occurs in the stratum spinosum. So we talked about these melanocytes and how they have these little dendrites, and while the melanocyte resides in the basal layer, it's up here in the stratum spinosum that the melanocyte will release melanosomes, and it's actually giving each keratinocyte its color at this layer. And if that keratinocyte is healthy and can absorb those melanosomes, that's where we get our perfect skin color. And that's how it's supposed to work in an ideal world. And so I've just drawn it out in another display. Here is our melanocyte down here at the basal layer. These arrows represent dendrites, and he is now going to release his melanosomes, which are little packets of pigment, and it's going to get next to this keratinocyte and give it its color, and hence that's the way it works in the perfect world. So now we've talked about how it works, but let's talk about how things go wrong and what we can do about it. So my little cartoon here says what to say when someone who is disappointed that things didn't work out as planned. Because we can treat pigmentation with the same types of chemical peels, skin lighteners, but if you can explain the why and get to the root cause, that can help your client have some understanding and understand why and what we're going to do about it. One of the main culprits of pigmentation can come from unhealthy cell membranes. So let's talk about oxidative stress, which is the loss of oil and water-soluble antioxidants within that membrane. Too many free radicals in the skin. Remember, I said that cell membrane has to have uh, oil and water-soluble antioxidants that are treating that water-loving head, the oil-loving tails, and they get in and they treat the inside of the cell. So what are some of the causes of free radicals? Well, number one, UV rays, the sun, age, just poor nutrition if we're not eating correctly. We're that modern American diet is too rich in saturated fats, not enough antioxidants, just free radicals from the air. Too much alcohol. A lot of people will talk about wine having resveratrol, but that would probably be about 4 ounces. Too much alcohol is going to deplete the antioxidants. Of course, cigarettes will deplete oxygen. Stress. I don't know if you've ever seen somebody that starts to go under a lot of stress and they start to just turn kind of gray or yellowish, and that is stress will deplete the antioxidants and give you a dull complexion, hence the melanogenesis isn't working properly. Lack of sleep, medications. I see this in elderly. If they take a lot of medications, their skin will actually start to turn yellow and look calloused. Lack of fluid intake, illnesses, and we could go on and on. But if you allow this oxidative stress or the lack of antioxidants within the cell membrane to go on, it leads to lipid peroxidation. And lipid peroxidation is the death of the cell before it's ready to shed off. And so when you see that and you're feeling that tough, calloused skin, you don't want to just go in and just start peeling it with the heaviest chemical peel you have. You really want to surge some antioxidants and get into gentle exfoliation. So I've drawn it out on my little slide here again, where the melanocyte, the keratinocytes, your stem cells, they all need antioxidants. And specifically, I'm putting up here vitamins A, B, C, and E. If you have plenty of antioxidants, you can have that nutrition flow in, cellular waste flow out, a beautiful cell that can receive its pigment like it's supposed to. So let's talk about irregular pigmentation. So if this cell is not healthy, we're not eating our antioxidants, again, maybe if we're under a lot of stress, things that deplete or our antioxidants, we're out in the sun too much, this keratinocyte cannot accept those melanosomes. And so you will have excess melanosomes within the epidermis. And that's where you'll just see irregular pigmentation. It's just not that healthy look to the skin. Now, is this pretty easily fixed? Sure. Surge antioxidants, getting your fruits, your vegetables, you're putting them on topically, you're eating them, and then you're doing some gentle exfoliations, some facials, maybe some enzyme work, maybe some lactic work. You can get this exfoliated off in the normal 28 cell cycle. But what if, see that melanocyte there, what if that goes under oxidative stress? He will not produce pigment, and it can lead to hypopigmentation. And if you allow that melanocyte to actually go in under lipid peroxidation and die, that is the death of that cell, and he will not produce pigment anymore. And you'll see the white spots on the skin. So what can bring that pigment back? Maybe a good tattoo artist, because there's nothing that can revive that melanocyte. So what I'm showing here on the screen is poplioderma. So this is a combination of hypopigmentation, too much sun exposure, that melanocyte has undergone oxidative stress. He can't produce the pigment anymore. You're also seeing collagen loss, which results of in seeing the vascular reds at the surface of the skin. This is not easily treated. We cannot recover the pigment. However, various laser treatments could help minimize the reds, but we can't get that back to that smooth, even skin tone that we had in our youth. So this is one of my favorite types of pigmentation I like to talk about, specifically because I deal with it. It's lipofusion and cellular senescence. And this is the case of the lysosomes. Remember, I said the lysosomes are what will clean up the cell. They'll consume that damaged debris and move it out through exocytosis. But if you have a hardened cell membrane, lipid peroxidation is limiting that exocytosis. It can't move the cellular waste out. And you think you're looking at pigment, but this is wear and tear pigmentation. This is cellular debris within the cell. So will this respond to chemical peels or lasers or skin lighteners? It will not. You can soften the appearance of them, but the damage is done. And that just happens as we get older. It cannot slough off. It's the wear and tear pigment. And it's just from too many free radicals, not enough antioxidants, and too much, basically, sun exposure. Other types of pigmentation, how about melanin stimulating hormones? So as the pituitary glands makes too much MSH, generally from UV exposure, which influences the melanocyte to produce more pigment, that's what will give our skin color. But what you're looking at here on this picture is melasma, and you can see the lines of demarcation, and this is being driven by hormones, but specifically things like pregnancy, the pregnancy mass medications such as birth control pills, in vitro fertilization medications. These are root causes that result in melasma. And I'm going to show you a slide of why we can't just lift this all in one treatment. It takes finding the root cause, removing it. So in the case of pregnancy, once a woman delivers her baby, she can start working on lifting this pigmentation. But the pregnancy isn't creating the hormones anymore. Another thing we'll talk about is shortened or damaged melanocyte dendrites. So those dendrites on that melanocyte, remember, they're supposed to be in the stratum spinosum, but if they're shortened for any reason, they will deliver the melanosomes too far down in the epidermis, and the keratinocytes aren't picking it up. And shortened dendrites are something that we can't just punch in, take the melanocyte out and put a new one in. Lengthened dendrites. So I will see this in Fitzpatrick's 5 and 6 often, and especially around that cheek area. It's placing the melanin too high in the stratum spinosum, and it creates an uneven pigment distribution. Now, I feel like this is pretty, now while we can't correct it, permanently, we can't go in and fix the length of the dendrites, we can do chemical peels, and it does lift pretty easily because it's higher in the epidermis. It's just, you're going to work on it and it comes back because we haven't fixed the root cause, but we can work on treating it. And then again, mitochondrial DNA damage. Again, there's that hand with the cellular senescence, with oxidative stress and lipid peroxidation. There's a big risk that the cell's DNA becomes damaged. Therefore, cellular memory is impaired. It creates uncontrollable production of pigment. And again, it's not something that you can just peel off. And then hyperpigmentation. This is just going to generally result from acne scars, maybe a burn at the surface of the skin. So this slide here talks a little bit more about it. So hyperpigmentation, trauma to the skin, such as a ruptured pore or a cut at the surface, will cause hyperpigmentation. So my pore is going to erupt here. And if he traumatizes the melanocyte, he will produce too much pigmentation, known as hyperpigmentation. Again, I feel with hyperpigmentation, if you can recognize it, if you can get the acne under control first, obviously, we can deliver lighteners into the skin, tyrosinase inhibitors. The melanocyte will not produce as much pigment, and we gently exfoliate it off. Hyperpigmentation, I feel pretty confident, 75 to 100% improvement on lifting hyperpigmentation. However, it's melasma that you really want to recognize it, and you want to talk to your client about what could be the root cause. Is it stress? Is it hormones? Is it birth control? Is it a pregnancy? Trying to get to the root cause. Now we're going to work on it, but this will be harder to lift. So let's talk about melasma. It's influenced by hormones, medications, pregnancy, and it's influencing this tyrosinase enzyme here. And this tyrosinase enzyme is what tells that melanocyte, now just not on a one-time basis, it's every single day. Melanocyte, I need you to produce a lot of pigment. And that's what it does. And it starts producing way too much pigment, and it will start to drop down into the dermis. And specifically, it will land on these stem cells. Remember those keratinoid stems that those stem cells are going to create your keratinocytes every day? If you have pigment residing on those stem cells, it's going to produce a pigmented, fresh new keratinocyte, and it's going to work up its way up to the stratum spinosum, and now it's going to get its regular dosage of pigmentation. You would think, well, Lisa, why don't we just get a heavy-duty chemical peel and we'll just wipe that pigmentation off of those stem cells. If you did that, you would actually create scar tissue because you have to have those stem cells to create new skin every day. It would result in hypopigmentation. It would be white. So you cannot peel off your stem cells. That is not what we're going to try to do. So treatment options include a series of chemical peels. Generally, one big peel is not going to be the answer for melasma. And so chemical peels with tyrosinase inhibitors used at home on a daily basis. I generally will say twice a day, morning and night, when I'm talking about melasma. And I will spot treat melasma. I don't feel like I have to deliver those lighteners, tyrosinase inhibitors all over the entire face. I spot treat the pigment. And this melasma, so, we're going to work here in the epidermis, but this melasma will come back after any sun exposure, heat exposure. So even working over a pot of boiling water in a hot kitchen, menstrual cycles will stimulate that pigmentation of that melanocyte to create more pigment. And so my key here is if you can find the root cause, if you could draw this picture out for your client and set expectations, with melasma, I'm confident in about a 50 to 75% improvement. And then we're going to do a series of peels, and then you're going to come back and see me every month. And so I can keep it at bay until we can find the root cause. And my story with this one is I suffered from this. I was on birth control for about 20 years, and that was my root cause. But after I went off of birth control, it took about 2 years for that pigment to work its way off of the stem cells, and it went away because I now removed the root cause, allowed time for those stem cells to regenerate, and so I don't have melasma anymore. But if you can set expectations with your client as to why it's not going to completely go away, give them some understanding, then we can move on. Okay, how about freckles? These are dermal and they're difficult to remove completely because they are in the dermis. They can be genetic and primarily caused by sun exposure, and they will generally fade in the winter and darken with sun exposure. Chemical peels will soften freckles, but they are dermal and will not be completely lifted. I've seen really good work with intense pulse light on Fitzpatrick's 1 through 3, but again, they tend to come back with sun exposure. All right, how about solar lentiginous? People just want to laser these off. They want to chemical peel them off, and really these are due to age and sun exposure. Specifically, remember me talking about cellular senescence resulting from DNA damage. Treatment is limited based on that DNA damage. So we could soften them, but we're not going to remove them completely. How about SKs, seborrhea keratosis? And this is basically just an overproliferation of cells at the surface. These need to be manually removed. They won't lift with chemical peels. We might be able to soften them with a chemical peel, but they need a hyphicator or a skin classic or a machine that's going to help take these off. They come with age and sun exposure, and they can be hereditary. So this is the end of my presentation. I hope you learned some new ideas on finding the root cause dealing with pigmentation, setting a treatment plan, which is for the most part is going to be a series of chemical peels, tyrosinase inhibitors at home, and then follow-up treatments. And then setting expectations with your client, giving them the understanding of what is going on with their skin and why. And that's where I think you're going to find your success. Thank you, ASCP, for allowing me this opportunity to talk to everyone today about the fascinating topics of hyperpigmentation and melanogenesis and everything that goes with it.